Welcome back to Meet the Mets fans. I'm your host, Stefan, here for our Mets Roundtable. The first time ever, we've got a bunch of podcast hosts, social media promoters, all here with us on Meet the Mets fans, doing a roundtable recapping the Mets trade deadline. I got a lot for you guys in store. We're going to talk all about this deadline, but we didn't just want to do it, me and Justin here today. We wanted to bring in some outside sources, but all people that you've met before if you've been following this channel. So let me introduce you guys to all of our teammates for the night joining our co-hosting panel. We got Mike from Pudgy Boys. What's up, Mike? Welcome to the channel. Welcome back. We got Mike from JBM Sports Media, and we got my Master Flip Phillip joining us as well here with us on the pod. And we got Justin making his return from being a while out. Justin, welcome back as well. Got a lot to get to here, boys. I want to outline for all of our fans what this episode is going to look like. So today in this episode, you might not hear a ton from me other than giving prompts. I'm going to outline for a prompt that all of our panelists here today are going to respond to. And then you'll hear from them on how they feel overall about this Mets trade deadline. We're going to touch on a bunch of different things, prospects we got back, guys we gave up, and how the front office did overall. So we got a lot to get to. We're going to jump right in. Welcome, boys. I appreciate you. We're going to start off with prompt number one. Mike from Pudgy Boys, you're going to lead us off here. You're going to take this first prompt. You're going to go through it. And then we're going to follow the order where it's going to be Mike from Pudgy Boys, Master Flip, Mike from JBM, and then Justin closing out on each prompt. First one, we went into this deadline expecting that the Mets were going to trade away pretty much every expiring contract for prospects. We saw most of those players get moved. We're going to do this quick rip around. I want one sentence, right? We're going to talk about a lot. Just give me one sentence for now. Your overall feelings on the Mets trade deadline. Mike from Pudgy Boys, take it away. But Mike, make sure you drop us a little line on what Pudgy Boys is.
Yeah, Pudgy Boys Sports Talk. Pudgy Boys has a Z at the end of the boys. I'm not too sure yet if that sounds a little weird or not, but I'm just going with some sort of flow. Pudgy Boys with a Z at the end of boys, not an S. We do sports content. Big Mets fan, wrestling fan, Knicks, Giants, all that good stuff. We're going to have it all over Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, any of that. The one sentence that I will say about the New York Met trade deadline, I am optimistic about the future and the flexibility financially and the direction that the team is heading.
Okay, Flip, you're next.
I don't think we did enough, quite honestly. When I see the where we were prior to the deadline, bottom third farm in baseball, we're still a bottom third of farm in baseball. I don't think the Mets did enough.
Okay, Mike, JVM.
Disappointed that this is where we ended up this year, but overall, I guess happy with some of the return that we got.
Justin, close us out.
Yeah, unfortunately, we got to trust the process. None of us are in the room. None of us are negotiating. Right? We don't know what the actual values of a Brooks Raley is, right, or a Luke Weaver. But unfortunately, we are trusting this man who has let us down to 2 unsuccessful seasons.
All right, so we got our first whip around. Initial thoughts from everybody. We're going to dive deep here on this podcast here today. Prompt number 2, we're going to have Master Flip lead us off on this one. Flip, did the Mets maximize their assets? Did they get the most out of the players that they moved? At this time, we're going to start with you. Tell us a little bit, though, before you start about the community that you are building on WhatsApp and what's going on with that, and tell us how fans can join that community.
Yeah, man, we got communities on WhatsApp. You can find me on X at @MasterFlip_. I'm also on IG, very limited on IG, but we got a community on WhatsApp. You want to join, just shoot me a DM. We got a group chat on X. You want to join, we just trying to keep it positive in the Twitter streets. But just to follow up on your question, look, man, I don't think we maximized on the arms that we parted with, particularly with Brooks Raley. I think that, when we got back 2 top 20 guys, or 2 top 30 guys for AJ Minter, a guy on expiring contract, and then, we go out and we trade with a bottom third farm. We don't even get back a decent return on Brooks Raley. It's a little disappointing, honestly.
Okay, Mike, what do you got?
I don't fully know if we completely maximized or not because, like you mentioned earlier, we weren't there in the negotiation room. So we don't know what was available and what wasn't. We don't know if David Stearns maybe turned some into nothing. To hit on a little bit what Flip said, I completely agree as far as the return on Brooks Raley. I that was the one that was very disappointing to me. I thought maybe there could have been more, but we ended up with what we ended up with.
Justin.
Yeah, again, we got 13 prospects back or 14 prospects back in this trade deadline. Last year, we gave up, I believe it was 10. In the offseason, we obviously traded another 2 top 100s, right, for Freddie. And so it was pretty clear that David Stearns went into his trade deadline saying, I need to recoup and rebuild this farm system. Over the last couple of years, he's gave up a ton of prospects. Obviously, the Mets have been in it, which has been a good thing, right? As Flip mentioned earlier before, is that, we're a bottom half farm system. Some of our guys have obviously, graduated into the major leagues. But then also we had some guys with regression, such as Jonathan, right? And so on and so forth. And so, in terms of like maximizing our assets, I think it's interesting that Stearns has came out and said we want to compete in 2027. And then you traded guys away that were under contract, multiple guys for next year in 2027 that had been big pieces specifically from the bullpen with Luke Weaver and Brazoban. And so for me, right, he talked about how it was a no-brainer. He had to get rid of them just because of the return that they got. And I don't necessarily know if I agree with that, right? Like I agree with the return that we got from, Clay Holmes and Tyrone Taylor. You got yourself a top 100 prospect, and that's awesome. But when you're talking about Luke Weaver and you're talking about Brazoban, those are guys that were, top 15 in other organization systems. And so when you're talking about maximizing their assets, you're relying on guys in single A, double A to now hopefully become guys that were successful in the major leagues, such as Weaver and Brazoban. And so, yeah, I got a tough time saying that this was a successful deadline for sure with these.
Pudgy.
Yeah, I mean, when your team is selling at the deadline, obviously it's going to take a lot to satisfy the masses and to satisfy the fan base. The Mets could have acquired a lot of top prospects back at the deadline, and I think the Met fan would probably still be very pissed off that we're in the position that we're in. Ultimately, that's why we're here, when they're selling pieces off. When it comes to guys like Brazoban and these bullpen guys, I completely get, Justin, what you were saying, but I mean, the bullpen is so fickle year to year. Like Brazoban going into age, 36, 37 next year. And I can't be fully dependent on a guy like Brazoban coming back next year, although he does have 3 years of control. He's getting older. And rarely, that's probably the one guy I would agree with you guys on, where if we're going to trade him to Philly, was that possibly the best deal that we could get in the division with Philadelphia Phillies? I don't know. But ultimately, the bullpen guys that we got rid of, I'm perfectly fine with. Because, again, bullpen-like prospects, fickle year to year. Luke Weaver could come back next year, have a 4.5 ERA. And guys that come out in the bullpen and are successful, I think we have to take full advantage. Now, whether the Mets got back the best return possible, I think we just have to believe in the fact that Stearns got back the best results that he can get back.
Yeah, the one thing I will say on Luke Weaver, for me, that's really, really hard to give up on is the New York thing, man. The fact that he can pitch in New York and he's proven that for multiple years is the one reason why I would say with the multiple years of control and the New York aspect, I don't know that there's that return fits for me, but okay. I'll live with that. I'll live with the idea that David Stearns is in the room and we're not, and we just got to trust that those are the best returns that we could possibly get. Let's talk about the returns. We'll go to the next prompt. None of us are gurus, right? None of us are experts. Maybe some of us know a little bit about the Mets farm system, but I highly doubt that there's anyone sitting here that's an expert on another team's farm system. Prospects, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but prospects to me are a lottery ticket. We've got a ton of them, 13 lottery tickets. Is there one return that made you feel especially good? Or is there, for those of us that are going to speak afterwards, is there a return that you would say is particularly underwhelming in terms of a player, that prospect coming back? This time we're going to start off with Mike from JBM. And Mike, don't forget to tell us a little bit about JBM.
All right, so me and a couple of buddies started JBM Sports Media. We did our first video back in October. We kind of cover a bunch of everything. We talk a lot about baseball. It was kind of an initial podcast that was Diamond Discussion, and then that blossomed into now JBM. We still do Diamond Discussion under JBM, and we do talk about everything. We covered FIFA, we covered the NBA, we cover NFL, the draft, every major sport thing happening, UFC, boxing. We've literally touched all of it. So we're just trying to get our feel into what everything is, and it's just a way that we can push out content on a daily basis, because that's literally what we do. There is a new video up every day. So that. To jump into what you said, I mean, obviously, I think the biggest return is what we got back from Chicago, giving away a guy like Clay Holmes and Tyrone Taylor. Now, for me, as Met fans, if you guys could agree with this, Clay Holmes was somewhat of a soft spot, because I don't know about you guys, but when I got into conversations with Yankee fans when we first signed Clay Holmes, we got ragged on that we were picking up Cardiac Clay and turning him into a starter and this and that. And that turned out to be one of the best things that we could have done. So I had a very high hopes for Clay Holmes, and it's a shame to see him go. And I was happy to see his progression as a starter. One, because when we get to stick it to a Yankee fan, I think it's always fun because we don't get to do that very often. But it was nice to see him develop and to get back now the number one prospect in Jefferson Rojas in our farm system and the top 100. I was very happy with that. As far as, I kind of alluded to it already. Where I was a little disappointed was the return for Brooks Raley. Like Mike had mentioned that, we traded him to a division rival. Now, normally we've seen some of these deals go on at this deadline today, and there seems to be the in-division tax. That didn't seem to happen here. I was very disappointed. I thought we could have got a similar package to what we got for Minter, if not maybe better, because Raley's been, for the most part, healthy. I mean, I know he had TJ, but Minter's time with the Mets has been very disappointing because he hasn't been on the field all that much. Raley, on the other hand, it's been longer. He has. I felt like he could have got maybe more, especially trading within the division. I thought that tax would have been a thing. Seemed to not exist. So I was a little disappointed there.
Yeah. To jump into this. So there were, I believe it was 5 top 100 prospects got traded this offseason, this trade deadline. And obviously the Mets got one of those 5. And I believe the other 2 there was 2 of them, one with the Adley Rushman. There was one, obviously, that one with Tarik Skubal. And so the fact that the Mets got one of those 5 for Clay Holmes, I think is a nice job by David Stearns, right? We don't want to give this guy too much credit. Obviously, we're pretty down on him right now. A lot of Met fans are down on him right now. But the fact that you got one of 5 top 100 prospects to come back to this Mets organization, I think is a nice job. I think last trade deadline, there was only 2 top 100 prospects that got traded. And so it's pretty clear, like during these trade deadlines, that not many of these guys get moved. And the fact that they was able to actually acquire some of them, or at least one of them, I think is a nice job. In terms of like the disappointment, again, I have to go back to when you tell me I want to compete in 2027, and you were trading guys like Luke Weaver, who has an under a 2 ERA, and he was under team control with a 1-year, $11 million contract for next year. I can't wrap my head around that. And to look at the fan base and say, yeah, we're going to compete, but we're going to get rid of guys that are successful here or that could help us in 2027 for a guy that's currently in AA. I don't know how he's able to, like, with a serious face, like, say that to Met fans. If you're telling me that it's a rebuild, say it's a rebuild. I know that he went on his press conference, right, at whatever time, 6:30. He said this is not a rebuild, that he's going to hopefully use some of these assets to better the team in 2027, and maybe that is true. It is shown in the past that he has definitely done that. He has made trades, and he has then used those assets, right, to help the major league club. And so hopefully, like when he was with Milwaukee, so hopefully that happens here in 2027 if there's a season. But, in terms of like what I liked, I definitely appreciate them getting one of those 5 top 100 prospects back.
Pudgy, what you got for us?
Yeah, I think Rojas is going to be the sexy name coming out of this entire trade deadline, because if the Mets were going to trade Holmes and pair him with Taylor, especially with 2 rentals, getting back a top 2 prospect in somebody's farm system for 2 rentals that you could easily just re-sign in the offseason, that's a huge win for me. So the Mets could walk away with essentially Holmes back in the rotation in 2027 and Jefferson Rojas added to the top of your farm system. That's probably the biggest win of the deadline. I don't want to just throw away the fact that the Mets did acquire Sammy Stafora from Pittsburgh as well, because he's a hell of a prospect on top of the fact that we did trade away Luke Weaver. And Mets fans are going to look at that deal and say, we didn't get enough for Luke Weaver. But, a lot of the other pieces that we got were more quantity over quality, I assume. But this was the one, these 2 prospects that we got back, I think we're going to, at least I would assume Stafora will be one of the more expendable ones in other trades. And like what Justin said before, they're going to compete every single year as long as Steve Cohen is the owner of this team. He's not going to not spend money. So I think we're not in the Wilpon era anymore. And I know there are Mets fans that are asking for the Wilpons to come back, which is crazy to me. But like, when as Steve Cohen, as long as he's the owner of this team, I don't think we'll ever be in a rebuild. Maybe a retooling, but never a rebuild. So again, the flexibility the roster has now to be put in any position that Stearns wants it to be put in, whether that turns out to be good or bad, I think we're in a tremendous spot. And again, Rojas is definitely the gem of the trade deadline for us.
Flip.
Yeah, man, certainly Rojas is the sexy name coming back. But look, just to go back on the David Stearns talk, I'm going to hold him to it when he says it's not a rebuild, it's a retool. Because again, if we would have been rebuilding, guys like Lindor might have not been, might have been discussed in trades. So, but look, man, one name I'm looking that might fly under the radar is the AJ Minter trade. I love the guy, the kid we're getting back. He's not even going to crack our top 30, at least not yet. Not till the next top 100 refresh, which apparently is coming in sometime in August. But my guy Billy Amick, I posted a highlight of my man hitting a 474-foot tank. If you got that kind of power, you could play for my team. So definitely that's one kid that I'm going to keep my eyes closely on.
Gotcha. Appreciate you guys on that. I completely agree on a lot of the things that you guys said. The rebuilding, the retooling, those are all things, Mike, you brought up Steve Cohen being the owner of this team. The idea that people want the Wilpon era back, I think, is just a joke. And so we should be happy as Met fans that we have an owner that's willing to spend. I just don't know if this president of baseball ops has what it takes to put a team on the field that's actually going to be a winner. I believed in him. I believed in this team. I think a lot of us did. And this was the product that we got. But we're here. We are where we are. There's one guy that I need to talk about in this next prompt. We're going to start with Justin on this one. Justin, in the media availability that you were talking about, David Stearns was asked about the decision not to move Luis Robert Jr. He said that the reason he didn't do it wasn't driven on contract status, which we all know that Luis Robert Jr. could be released at the end of this year, that option not picked up. It was they kept him because they believed in what he could provide for the final 2 months of the season. The organization remains excited about the impact that he could make in the second half and views him as an important piece moving forward. Justin, we'll start with you. Shout out Meet the Mets fans, but then tell us your thoughts on Luis Robert Jr., Lou Bob not being traded.
Yeah, if you guys aren't following right now, obviously we're on Meet the Mets Fans podcast. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, right? I know Stefan does a hell of a job, promoting this channel. And so, in terms of Lou Bob, I just don't think there was much interest in him, right? I think it was like the Kodai Senga thing, right? Where they were like, oh, the Padres inquired about him, right? Like they did not inquire about Kodai Senga at all, right? Like that's a total joke. Whoever put that out there is actually, it's comical to say that. The fact that like the Mets are 18 games under 500, right? And you're talking about how he's a good addition or can be a good addition in the second half of this season. The season is shot. Every single Met fan since June has been looking forward to this trade deadline because that's the only thing that we had at this point. And so, for Luis Robert, I don't believe that they're going to pick up the option, especially because there's just no place for him, right? If he is he's a center fielder. You have Ewing, you have Benj, and you have Soto, obviously patrolling the outfield. I don't see where Luis Robert even fits into this team. And for $20 million, we already have a guy that's batting 135 in Jorge Polanco that we just don't need another $20 million guy that is, hitting under 200 at this point. And so I just think for this trade deadline, I don't think there was much interest in Luis Robert. For Steve Cohen, you still got to try to get some fans in the stands here, right, throughout the rest of the season. And so maybe those are guys that could possibly win a couple of games for him. But yeah, overall, I don't see this guy being a part of this team moving forward at all.
Yeah, I mean, I was a huge Luis Robert fan. I was ecstatic when they got him. I wanted him last year when they were talking about him for Vientos at the trade deadline. I was all for it. It's a trade I wish they would have pulled off a year and a half ago at that deadline, but I mean, it's a trade now. I still look back and I would still make the trade straight up for Acuna, knowing that Luis Robert Jr. gets hurt all the time. I just think the potential of having him on the roster was so valuable. And yes, it didn't work out. They didn't lose much. So probably not going to be here. I think Stearns gave you the classic PR answer, but like you guys said, the interest level was just not there. I mean, the Mets probably wanted a team to maybe eat some of the contract and take it on. No team was going to eat the money. Eating money shouldn't be an issue for the Mets, but I know this deadline apparently it was, except for the Weaver deal.
Yeah.
I mean, the Luis Robert thing, the PR answer with him helping the team out does nothing for me. So we could enjoy the last couple of months of Luis Robert Jr. He'll probably go on a red hot streak. for all we know.
I'm going to take a different approach with this. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they don't pick up his option. I mean, there's an if factor, right? Because he spoke about the option and the option is there. If he goes out and performs the next 2 months, there's a possibility they could pick up that option. We saw and we see the thin hitting market for next year's free agency, right? If he outperforms the next 2 months, you got a guy who plays a premium position in center field, Gold Glove caliber defense, and if he hits, well, then you can sell a team on that. I think that was the strategy with the White Sox picking up his option this past offseason. So again, it's dependent on that if factor. If he outperforms, I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets at least entertain picking up that $20 million option.
Fellas, I think all equally, I think everybody hit a point that, you know, makes total sense. And you know what? Like Mike had mentioned, the PR move by David Stearns. I mean, you're not going to come out and flat out say there wasn't a market for this guy. What am I going to do with him? You know, like he's not going to do that. And David Stearns holds everything tight to the chest. I mean, you know, we saw he couldn't even answer the core question, you know, who are the guys? You know, and he's like, no, we have young players and veterans that are a part of the future of this team. And he repeated that like 5 times in a row. You know, this is the David Stearns way. He doesn't say much and he'll give you that PR and all that jazz. So he does that. I think there could be an upside with Lou Bob. I'm very disappointed at how this turned out, but we knew this risk coming in. I mean, you know, the good thing was we didn't give up much for him. You know, we gave up Acuna, who just didn't have a place on this roster anymore and really doesn't seem like he's panning out as well as he came up the first time when he replaced Lindor when he got hurt in 24. You know, so we really didn't give up a ton to get him, and it was a high ceiling, you know, low risk type of thing. So it's unfortunate it didn't work out. You know, but listen, if he does perform, you know, like Flip said, maybe that could be a thing where they pick up the option and say, hey, look, you know, he was healthy the last couple of months of the season. He turned it around. His average went up. He was hitting for power. He was playing the position well, like he's capable. Maybe we could work something out. Or they have another weapon on the roster. I mean, it really depends. Robert, if he could just stay healthy, that's really what it is. If he could just stay healthy, he is a weapon. He needs to be on the field.
Yeah, I see him if they like that idea, Flip. It was going to be my follow-up question to everybody, and you kind of took the words out of my mouth. Is there a chance he ends up staying here? They pick up this option. And the reason I ask that is he's a guy that he has so much power. They talk about it all the time. He hits the ball harder than anybody. If they can keep him healthy, and maybe the way to do that is to just make him the DH. I know that he has the ability to have Gold Glove defense in center field. He has the ability to do that. But we saw him out there not make great plays in center field for a part of this year. And so I wonder if you take away the defense and just ask him to hit every single day, if he's a guy that you would want to keep around to hit 30, 40 home runs on this team. But one problem with it is there's so many guys like that on this team that if they could only be a DH, we'd be very happy about it, right? The Vientoses of the world, the Polancos of the world, even Francisco Alvarez is a guy that if you could just have him DH every single day, you'd be happy with it. There's just too many guys to DH. So we'll see where it ends up going with Lou Bob. We'll move on to the next one. Are there any moves that came as a surprise that the Mets went out and made that move, or a move that didn't get made that you're surprised by that happening? Pudgy, you'll take the lead on this one.
I'm not surprised that guys like Beatty weren't traded away, or they couldn't just find any taker, like we said, for other players like Luis Robert. I was surprised that they couldn't get rid of a guy like Kodai Senga. As much as we want to laugh at it, like there is semi-value in Kodai Senga that another team possibly sees. I know the Padres thing probably wasn't real, but the velocity's there with Senga. If the Mets ate like half the money, I was a little disappointed in the fact and surprised they didn't gut a few of these pieces that have been here for the last 5 or 6 years that just don't belong here anymore. The Beatties, the Vientoses, I know he's on the injured list, but Beatty, Vientos, and all these guys. But no, I wasn't really surprised with what they got back and any of the players that they dealt away.
Flip.
I'm extremely shocked Beatty wasn't at least shocked, to be honest. I mean, I understood the decision in playing Beatty. We saw Beatty at second base. We've seen Beatty in right field. And the only the way that we could probably justify that is that they're shopping the guy, so they got to showcase the guy around, right? And I mean, we saw that game out there in Milwaukee where he dropped that ball, led to 3 runs. We lost the game by by one run, right? And so, what's the plan moving forward then for Brett Beatty when Soto comes back? Now you have Luis Bob. What are you going to do with AJ Ewing, right? So, and Mark Vientos, I saw him in his IG, lifting weights or whatever he was doing out there. But whenever he comes back, where are you going to fit these guys into the lineup, right? So I'm most definitely shocked that at least Beatty wasn't moved.
Mike?
I'm going to be honest. I kind of have two answers to this a little bit. To kind of piggyback off Flip and Mike a little bit, Beatty and Vientos. But I also think, I'm shocked that they weren't moved. I don't know what the value was out there for them. I'm going to say right now, Beatty and Vientos, their value is probably at the lowest that it's ever been. So what I can say is they'd probably be more of an off-season type move. Maybe they package with some of the new pieces that they did get. That could be more appealing to a team. Maybe they're also a throw-in with a guy like Sean Manaea if they decide to move off of him. I know he's been pitching a lot better. Manaea was another one that was a little could they have eaten maybe half of that contract to try to get rid of him? He's been pitching a lot better as of late. He seems to have maybe found himself a little bit. The other thing was Luke Weaver and Brazoban. I felt that they were going to move one, not both. I felt it was more Brazoban because of the fact of his age, and Weaver is having the season of his life. I also felt that with both of those pieces, it was a kind of a win-win. If you trade them, you're going to get value back. And if you don't, you have a bullpen piece for the following year. And I was a little shocked that both went. I felt they were going to keep one, at least one of them. And I felt they were going to lean more on the Luke Weaver side.
Yeah, and Mike, I'm with you on that. The one thing that David Stearns did well in this offseason was he actually built a really good bullpen, right? The acquisitions, right? Whatever you want to say about Williams, right? He's been a little up and down. Okay, he's been overall okay. But the acquisitions that he actually did make for the bullpen were pretty successful. And so to break up that core for guys that were under contract, I know I've said this a few times, right? I thought it was a little shocking. I also did. I thought there was a possibility that Alvarez was going to get moved as well, right? And I'm not saying that I wanted Alvarez to get moved. I'm saying that it's pretty clear that David Stearns is trying to break up whatever has been here that has not been successful. So you guys are talking about Beatty, you're talking about Vientos, these guys that potentially could have been moved. And I thought Alvarez was right in that same exact camp, especially because the catching market was pretty robust. You saw Adley Rutschman getting, two top 100 prospects coming back from Boston. I'm not saying that Alvarez is the same as Adley Rutschman, but I'm saying that there was clearly a huge interest in the catching market. And for a guy that's clearly trying to break up what currently the Mets have, getting rid of guys that potentially could help them in 2027, I thought Alvarez might be a guy that he might move. Who knows what the value was? Maybe we weren't in those conversations. Maybe there was some discussion in those. But I thought Alvarez was a guy that potentially could get moved. I'm not saying personally I wanted him to get moved, but he's another guy that just can't really stay healthy. His defense is suspect. When he's streaky as an offensive player. I know catching is a tough position, but I thought that was a guy that potentially could have been moved in this offseason or this trade deadline.
All right, we're gonna go to the next one. A little off Mets here, but Mets tangential. The biggest move of the trade deadline, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about it, was Tarik Skubal getting traded to the LA Dodgers for 3 prospects. They got Zaire Hope, River Ryan, and Brady Smith was the return package from the Dodgers to the Detroit Tigers. Here's the question, Mets related. Does his trade to the LA Dodgers hurt the Mets' chances of getting Skubal in the offseason? And then you guys can talk about it. Did the Dodgers break baseball again? Thoughts on this trade? Let's touch on the Mets a little bit. We'll start with Flip on this one.
I think it does, absolutely, 100%. I think that if you're the Dodgers and you're making this trade, I know it's on Boris-like to negotiate, trades before or try to take his agents to the free agency. But I think they might get a deal done before the lockout with him and just try to get that grandfathered in terms of payroll. Think about what the next CBA is going to bring in terms of, restrictions and salary cap. So absolutely, I think he's as good as a Dodger for life.
I absolutely agree that it's going to hurt the Mets' chances for now because Skubal is now there. He's going to get a taste of LA and see what this team is about. I mean, they have an all-star team, a juggernaut. I mean, something I don't think we've ever seen before. I'm going to be honest. We could talk about the Yankees of the 90s, but I think this Dodger team blows every one of those teams out of the water. I don't care about win record. The talent that this team has is unreal. And the fact that now they get to plug him in and basically kind of showcase him around a little bit. Look, this is what life is like. You really going to leave? This is what we're going to be competing for championships. Why would you leave? You're the best pitcher on the planet. Be the ace of this staff. That's going to be a hard sell to walk away from. The other thing, I don't know if they really, I'm going to be honest, I don't have an issue with what the Dodgers are doing. I think all the other teams are the problem in baseball, and they're the thing that's breaking baseball. You know, if you don't want the Dodgers to have Blake Snell, then Tampa should have signed him. You don't want the Dodgers to have Tyler Glass now. Tampa should have signed him. You don't want them to have Mookie Betts. Boston should have signed him. That is the problem. I don't have an issue with the fact that the Dodgers are going out and spending money and trying to put the absolute best product on the field. I don't have a beef with that because that's what every team should be doing. So realistically, I don't think it's the Dodgers' fault that they're just capitalizing on teams being cheap. I think it's the other teams that are the issue. And I think that's going to be the problem with the CBA, that they're going to just continue to point at the Dodgers and say that's the bad guy, like it's Scarface. But in reality, it's not. The bad guy are the teams that are not signing these players and making them available for teams like the Dodgers to swoop in and steal.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, you're 100% correct. There needs to be a salary floor, right? Forget about the salary cap. There needs to be a salary floor where organizations are held to a standard in which you have to spend X amount of dollars in order for you to compete throughout this year. And the fact that MLB has allowed owners to spend $30 million on the entire season when guys are signing one-year contracts of $30 million is a total joke. You know, in terms of the Dodgers, right? Like, you got to give them credit. They have built not just a juggernaut on their major league roster, but they've also built a juggernaut on their minor league roster. Zaire Hope is a top 25 prospect, and he was ranked like number 4, number 5 just in their own system alone. And so the fact that they can then utilize those assets to now improve the major league club, you can't get mad at them for doing it. It's just jealousy. It's when Steve Cohen took over 5 years ago, what he was saying, whatever every single Met fan dreamed of, is that what the Mets are going to do is exactly what the Dodgers are currently doing right now. And I know that that's cliche to say, but it's true, right? Like, that is literally what every single Met fan's dream was, is that the Mets are going to spend a ton of money. They're going to have a robust minor league system, and that Steve Cohen is going to bring us to the promised land like the Dodgers have been for the last X amount of years.
How'd you close this out?
Like, I would challenge, there's a couple of things with the Skubal stuff. I would challenge any Met fan to not have the feeling that it feels to what the Dodgers fans are feeling right now. After 2024, when the news broke at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, that on top of the Mets having a successful season and almost getting to the World Series, that they agreed to a multi-year deal with Carlos Correa and adding to this roster, how you felt in that moment, that specific time period, was how Dodgers fans feel about almost every single player that the Dodgers want to acquire. Getting a guy like Carlos, again, thank God it didn't work out. But that's what the Mets were on pace to do. The Dodgers don't draft in the top 5 of the farm system in the draft every year, and they're still acquiring top-level international players, even with the restrictions that they have that these other owners are just benefiting from. I love what the Dodgers are doing. There's certain things that the CBA won't fix, obviously, which is the winning culture that the Dodgers have, playing in California, which is absolutely stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. You're not going to be able to fix those things. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you guys are in favor of, I always feel a little leery handing over 30, 35, 40 plus $1 million in general to a pitcher over the age of 30. And as great as Skubal is, I would still be a little leery on the fact that the Mets going after Skubal, whether he wants to come here or not.
Anybody want to rebut that point before we move on?
I'm going to rebut it. I looked into it because a lot of things that went on with the Mets, like how they didn't go after Alonso and they didn't want to give him the length, and the same thing that the Mets aren't really too keen on giving long-term deals to pitchers over the age of 30. I really dove into that probably over the last 25 to 30 years, and it's actually spotted. The logic it makes sense. It's there. Not a lot of those contracts have really worked out, to be honest with you. Like, there's a few where the guy has either lived up to the deal or the team actually won a championship. So it's really not that far-fetched to do it. To not do it, I mean.
Yeah, the only pushback I would have is Tarik Skubal has won the Cy Young back-to-back years, right? And, obviously he was hurt this year. And so you're not looking at just like a good pitcher. You're looking at an elite pitcher. And so, when you're dealing with a guy like that, if you get yourself 4 Cy Young potential caliber years, is that then contract worth it for a 10-year deal? And so, that's the opportunity cost that you got to look at, right? Is these 4 years at the front end potentially worth it as potentially a Cy Young award winner? Not just like he's a really good pitcher, an elite top pitcher. And so that is the only pushback that I would get. But obviously, giving a 10-year contract to a pitcher, you're looking at least 2 years that they're going to be out with Tommy John surgery, right? Or some major injury that they had, right? You saw with Garrett Cole with the Yankees, right? Like, he's been amazing, but he's also missed 2 years at least of this contract because of an arm injury. And that's going to happen, no doubt, for sure.
Well, insurance pays for those years, so that you don't have to worry about that. That makes it worth it.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on this one now. This is what we've been waiting to do. It's what every podcast is going to do, and we're going to do it in the most authentic way we can, right? We're not experts. But let's give a grade. Let's give a grade to this deadline. How do we feel right now? And I don't necessarily think the grade is, I'm grading it because I believe in these prospects that we got back. You're grading it based on your feeling at the moment of how you feel about this team moving forward. And I guess the question I'll ask as you grade is, did this deadline increase or decrease your confidence in the current leadership of the New York Mets? Mike, you'll start us off.
So I guess as an overall grade, I mean, I really didn't think of this to be honest. So I guess I'll give it a B plus. I am genuinely, I guess, happy with the return. I mean, when you trade away 8 players and you get 13 in return, also what we know, what David Stearns is capable of with a minor league system and the product that he's, built over in Milwaukee. And now, some of the pieces that he's brought over here, some of the pieces that he's drafted and developed well. I mean, there's been some pieces that were outside of the top 100 that have pushed their way into it. The other thing is now I think I do have confidence going forward because I think he's going to start moving off of the pieces that are not his. The Beatties, the Vientos, the Mauricios, the Alvarezes. One thing about GMs, and it's not something that I feel like everybody looks at, but there's almost a sense of arrogance what they have, and it's not a bad thing. But it's a guy like when they traded for Freddie Peralta. If David Stearns has his choice of which guy he was going to move between Tong and Sproat, regardless of the talent level, he was going to move Sproat before he was going to move Tong because Sproat wasn't his. He didn't draft him. He drafted Tong. So that's going to be the guy. That's the guy I drafted. That's the guy I believe in. So that where I do have a sense of confidence because he does have a keen for the young talent. I really do believe he does. I mean, I think the proof is in somewhat of the pudding, but look at Milwaukee, like some of the product that's come out of there. So I am confident because now he's got a boatload of guys that he went out and got that he believes in. And, maybe some of those guys were targeted and those were the pieces that he did actually want. If that's the case, if David Stearns is eyeing a minor league piece, I still do have confidence in it that, maybe he made the right moves.
Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it to generic B. You got your 1 of 5 top 100 prospects that were traded at this deadline. One of them came to the Mets. You mostly gave up aging relievers, right? Guys that are on expiring contracts, right? Minus Luke Weaver. He's pretty much the only one that I would say or argue that, hey, maybe should have held on to him. I know that Pudgy is pretty high on the prospect that they got back from Pittsburgh, right, for Weaver. It's impossible for us to grade this trade deadline right now because these guys, we're not going to know this grade for another couple of years from now, right? In terms of the leadership, David Stearns is not going to be the GM next year. Right? David Stearns will be the president of baseball operations, and the New York Mets are going to hire a general manager for next year. I don't believe that Steve Cohen is going to go into next year saying like, hey, let's keep everything status quo. Let's trust this process. I think that David Stearns, he's not going to lose his job. He'll continue to be president of baseball operations. But I do believe that the New York Mets are going to hire a GM that's going to then start making decisions for this major league ball club versus decisions for the organization as a whole.
I mean, I'm unfortunately for me, and I go back and forth with a lot of Mets fans, I'm still very high on David Stearns, and I still think that he should be able to get the length of the contract, and I'm glad Cohen came out and said he should get it. I'll go B minus, like you guys said, generic grade. We have to wait a couple of years. Getting the top 100 prospect back alone gets you up to like a C plus, and then adding all the other pieces gets you up to that B minus grade. I'd be a pretty good grader if I was like a professor at a school or something, like a teacher. But I think the direction at the deadline, I was just looking into a few things. I'll be as quick as possible, I promise. The direction where I think the Mets are heading with the flexibility of the roster and financially and not locked into long-term deals, like going back to the 3 teams that we dealt all of the core players to, like the Orioles handing out the big-time deal to Pete and then selling off at the deadline, not knowing what the hell to do with all those contracts anymore. The Rangers, who Nimmo went over there, they're trying to sell off all those big-time contracts. The San Francisco Giants just signed and traded for all those big-time contracts. That would have been the New York Mets this year had we retained every piece that all the fans wanted to retain and trying to figure out how to work around all those contracts. trying to figure out how much we're going to sell off of the deadline. I truly, truly believe that. And to only have Lindor and Soto here 2 or 3+ years down the road right now, locked in long term, I think it opens up the door to the team that David Stearns can finally try and put together and not have all the outside pieces and the fans screaming, bring back Pete, bring this guy back. It's his team to build now. He's got 2 years to do it, and whether he does it or not, it's a completely different story. But I'm genuinely excited about the full direction that we're heading in.
Flip, close us out.
Look, man, I don't fully trust Stearns, but I'm confident though. And the reason why I'm confident is because, look, if this guy doesn't go out and have a strong 4th year, I don't think he's going to make it a year 5. But, just judging the trade deadline, when you bring in 14, 15 guys and 9 of which make the Mets top 30, right? That's 30%. Of the top 30, you entirely redid. I'm confident in that we got some bodies back in the event that, in the winter we want to go out and make a big trade. We got some pieces. But as far as grading, I got to give it a B-, and I think that's the proper grading. And the reason why I say that is, look, yesterday we were per Fangraphs, we were 26th in farm ranking. Okay, we made a jump. We're top 20 now, but it's still bottom third of the farm ranking. So where does that put us in terms of pulling big trades in a winter? I don't know. It depends on the progress that some of these guys are going to have to make within the next couple of months to make that jump. But that's where I land in grading.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a temporary B as well. And the reason I'll give it that B and say it's temporary is if any one of those guys ends up becoming a quality major league player, then what we gave up, the biggest piece that we gave up is worth it. It's 13 lottery tickets, 13 chances to get a quality player. When you gave up, Luke Weaver is probably the biggest thing we gave up here, right? And so to me, I'll give it that B along with you guys. And obviously, like I said when we started this, giving a grade is very challenging, especially at this point. Generally appreciate you guys coming on here, though, giving us your opinions, very, very different opinions across this podcast. And that's the point of this idea of a roundtable, of bringing in all of these different ideas, Master Flip, Pudgy Boys, JBM Sports Media, and Meet the Mets fans here coming together to bring you this deadline edition, this roundtable deadline recap. Hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you all had a great time. Let's close out with a Let's Go Mets. Appreciate all of you guys coming on. If any of you guys want to say anything before we close out, feel free. Table's yours.
Dude, we got Benny Agbayani's kid. That's awesome. I'm sorry. Listen, that's the Met fan in me. This is the stuff we get to be excited about. We got Benny Agbayani's kid. I'm happy about it.
He's apparently a player, man. He's hurt right now, and they think he's out for the year. But I think he's someone that came back. They said, he's a decent ball player. So we'll see.
I think the Spiker Man memes are going to be endless if this kid could turn out to be a major league contributor as well.
Yeah, we got some quality names back, that's for sure. I don't know if they're quality players, but we definitely got some quality names. All right, gentlemen, I appreciate you all coming on. Let's go Mets.
Boys.
Go GM.